Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 15th episode of Gatsby's Yarn and the 5th in the MBA series. The MBA series is an endeavor to cover prominent B schools across the country and help give aspirants a real picture of the college they seek admission in. In this week's episode, we have the most iconic institution of the country. I mean, the moment a person sets out on a journey of pursuing an MBA, this is the college that pops up in his mind almost immediately. The college that I'm talking of doesn't need any further guessing. It is IIM Ahmedabad. And we have with us one of the most remarkable people from the 23 batch, Ms. Vanshika Juneja, who I'll be interviewing over the course of this podcast and talk to her about the intricacies of getting to pursue a typical PGDM course. A very warm welcome to the podcast, Vanshika. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm actually enjoying the free time between finishing my MBA and joining my job, so doing as good as I can.
Now that you're done with your course, how was the experience like? The couple of years.
Very cliche, but two of the best years of my life so far. Like I hadn't lived in a hostel on campus before, so that entire experience of living with some of the smartest people I have known has been definitely lovely, to say the least.
Sharing space with some of the smartest people. I mean, how was the experience like the couple of years that you spent?
It was quite nice. So both in terms of learning as well as like self-development, there was a lot of personal development that has happened. There are a lot of friendships I have taken away. So it was an absolutely enriching, wholesome experience that way.
Wow. And the batch size happens to be 300 to 400 people.
Yeah, so IIM Ahmedabad offers two kinds of MBAs. One is the regular MBA and the other is MBA in agribusiness, farming and agribusiness, FABM. So
Mhm.
including both PGP, the regular MBA and FABM, we're close to 400. FABM students are about 50-ish in number, so 350 plus 50, that's the split.
350 plus 50. And you spoke about developing a lot of friendships during your stay. So you guys got to work together in case competitions and stuff, or there was something else as well?
So case competitions, yes, definitely. But the other very important thing is how the academic program is designed. A lot of your assignments are group submissions. So across the 2 years, you work with multiple study groups, and those study groups essentially become like the best of your friends because you spend a lot of your time with these people.
And the study groups are just a matter of chance, or take a lot of effort in, getting to form a study group.
So in the first year, so we've got sections in the first year because the course is same for everybody. And
Mhm.
therefore the study groups are made by the administration office. They try to make
Wow.
them as diverse as possible. They mix you up with engineers, non-engineers, men, women, people with disabilities and everything. So they try to ensure a healthy mix there. Um, so you have one study group in each term, and you've got 3 terms in the first year. So you're sort of
Mhm.
bound. But in the second year, when you have electives, you choose your own courses, you make your own study groups, and each group is different across the course. So you have multiple groups in second year.
Wow, wow, wow. The admin takes all the pain of getting to, help you make friends. That's a first that I've heard. So without dwelling further into, the coursework, let's start from your journey, Vansh. Your journey right from Hindu to XLRI and finally to IMA. If you could give us a short glimpse of all of that.
So I would say the entire journey is a byproduct of a few decisions and a few happy accidents. When I was
Mhm.
in Hindu, I think I was significantly confused about what next. Like, I genuinely wanted to do economics honors, which is why I went to Hindu. But post that, I think there were parts of economics which I loved, macroeconomics, development theory, but there were parts like micro and finance which I absolutely disliked. So there were a couple of options I was exploring, and I think by the end of my third year, I was like, you know what, let's just work for some time, figure out what I like, and then make this decision as opposed to making it right now. So I had a consulting PPO, but there was this company that works in the education space. They did their pre placement talk, and I was blown away by the work that they were doing. They were very outcomes and assessment focused. They wanted to improve learning outcomes in the underprivileged sections, etc., etc. So I said, this is what I will do. And I applied to them, got through, but I got in through as a content developer for the company. Coincidentally, they had a new team called the data science team. And one day I got a call from the HR saying, hey, your joining is 3 months away, but there is this new team and they have an opening for an analyst. Would you be interested in talking to the team? I said, okay, why not? Spoke to them, and the work that they were doing sounded super interesting. They were building adaptive learning solutions. They were assessing data from large scale assessments like PISA. PISA is a international education benchmarking assessment that happens to find out misconceptions, etc., etc. And I said, this sounds lovely. Let me do this. But I completely walked into this team not knowing what data science was. I was a non computer science student. I had no idea what Python was or what SQL was. And I go into this team and they're doing machine learning and data science. And I'm like, wait, this doesn't seem right. But my manager was a great woman. She said, if you like this, if you find this interesting, spend some time, learn. So I spent some time learning technology, figuring out what data science was, and I realized that, wow, technology is great. You can build large scale solutions which are personalized for big problems like education, healthcare, etc. So I figured that, okay, this is what I will do. I will build technology products for the development sector as a long term plan. But to do this, I needed two things. One is technology, and two is an idea of management and businesses, etc. So Accelerate happened for the first part of it, technology. I learned fundamentals of tech, analytics, data science, everything. And then alongside prepared for CAT and came to IIM Ahmedabad with this very clear idea of, hey, this is what I want to do. That's the journey.
That's the very first time that I got to see that clarity, that crystal clear clarity that I want to pursue development sector opportunities and transform things using technology. But I had to ask you this question. You did on-field work for a couple of years and then you went on to pursue a degree in XLRI. Did the learning, what do you call, was the learning better in XLRI or was it just a superficial stuff? Was it all just superficial?
So when I was working, a lot of Python and the coding aspect of my job, whatever I picked it up from the internet, and it was very job specific. Like I could
Hmm.
see the use cases in my job and not extend it beyond that. And also, I didn't have a foundation in how coding worked and how what the different algorithms were. Like, for example, at my workplace, if I was using a decision tree algorithm, which is a data science algorithm to build something, I didn't know how a random forest, which is another algorithm, worked, or how the whole Netflix collaborative filtering sort of a model worked. So to learn all of these things fundamentally, I looked up a bunch of courses, and Accelerate seemed to be very comprehensive. One, because it was a 1 year program. Two, it had live classes, with the classes being taken by the Accelerate professors themselves over the weekend. So it was very interactive. Good class mix. A lot of people were coming with 10 years of work experience or so. So a lot of industry perspective as to how their companies were using it. So that course was very eye-opening for me and very like broad in its scope. So it was quite nice.
So that did add on to your experience of getting to work in education in some.
Definitely.
And talking of your, understanding of analytics, did it give you an edge when you were pursuing your management degree in IIMA? Did it give you an upper hand compared to the rest of your peers?
Interesting question. So I think a lot of skills that I had, for example, when you code or when you do technology, you have this inherent problem solving, logical thinking approach to things. So that sort of helped me have a clear, logical approach to problems and assignments and all of those things. But more than that, from a placement perspective, the XLRI course on my CV was an indicator. It was a marker that I genuinely wanted to switch streams from economics to PM tech. I was putting in effort to make that switch. So it
Make
was
the trans-
a good marker for me to sort of get tech shortlists. So that.
Wow, wow, wow. That does give you an edge in product management roles exclusively, or does that hold good in other domains as well, and the rest of the domains?
So in today's date and time, when companies are increasingly moving towards a more data-driven decision-making culture, having data knowledge, having analytical sense of things is, I think, in general, a good skill to have. So
Mhm.
if I was recruiting in this time frame, I would prefer a candidate with those skills because like all of your marketing is also now very data driven. So I think it's a great skill to have, and there are I think multiple courses now that you can opt for online, offline.
But it does give you an edge, regardless of
Yeah,
whatever domain you
definitely,
stick with. So
definitely.
let's talk a little more about your choice of college, Vanshika. Back in 2021, what were the other colleges that you had in hand? What were the
I had
choices?
all of the converts. IIM ABC, Lucknow, Kozhikode, Indore, and FMS. These were my and Accelerate. So these were the options that I had, but ultimately it came down to Ahmedabad versus Bangalore, especially because I wanted to get into PM Tech, and Bangalore seems like the city of PM Tech. And I had also lived in Bangalore for 2.5 years, so I loved the city. I had friends. It was my comfort zone to say. Um, I remember I had a whiteboard with pros and cons of both colleges. But eventually, when you're making that decision, a lot of friends and family also come in and give their inputs. And the whole brand value aspect of A is A, Ahmedabad is Ahmedabad plays a lot into that decision. So that was one. That was actually a major deciding factor that, okay, brand value, networks, alumni networks, all of these things were better at Ahmedabad. And when you have an Ahmedabad admit, it is very difficult to let go of it. No matter how much you know that you want to go to Bangalore, it's difficult to let go of the Ahmedabad admit. But the other thing which sort of attracted me to Ahmedabad was they have this center called Ravi J. Mathai Center for Innovation in Education, RJMCI, where they work on education projects. And this center offers a bunch of electives in the second year. And because I was interested in the education sector particularly, I wanted to really take up these courses, and I did take those up in my second year, and that has been those have been like the best courses I've taken at IIM Ahmedabad. So yeah, that was the decision.
Probably to all the aspirants listening to this, having a clear-cut vision before entering your college helps you make that choice reasonably well, right, Vanshika? Having that clarity that okay, education is something I want to take up, and the dots do connect
Absolutely, like clarity is great
is
because
a
your MBA is
prerequisite.
not even 2 years long. It's technically less than 2 years, and there's so much happening. So it's good to be like have some sense of what you want to do.
So, moving ahead from clarity, Vanshika, why do you think programs at Indian Institutes of Management are bloody expensive? Like they charge 3 million rupees, 2.5 million rupees in a country like India, where, not a lot of money is in students' hands. So, how do IIMs justify that value? And if we make the calculation, 25 lakhs by 365 days, or probably 730 days, that's an enormous amount of money per day. How do you, what do you call, give that rationale, justifying?
So I have an interesting insight on this. As part of a course, I was looking at the annual reports of IIM Ahmedabad. I was basically trying to understand their sources of finance in the first 30 years. So all of these annual reports are very easily publicly available on their library website. Um, what I figured, even in the recent times, is this that the IIMs actually are only marginally profitable on the MBA programs, the standard MBA programs. They make most of their money from the executive offerings that they have. So, from an institute perspective, they do have costs which are commensurate to the fees. And if you ask me what are these broad buckets, um, the major bucket is teacher salaries, living and campus infrastructure, library resources, books, and all of those other resources. So, from an institute perspective, this is why the courses are expensive. But does it have to be this expensive? I don't think so. Does a student like in Ahmedabad, we really had beautiful rooms. Like this year, we have got new hostels, and the rooms are no less than a studio service apartment, beautiful rooms, great furniture, air conditioning, etc., etc. Are there hostels in India where people live without these facilities? Yes, and they're doing equally well. So, do you need that much expenditure? Is a question that institutes need to answer. But from a purely cost perspective, this is what the cost adds up to, and therefore the fees. But from the student's perspective, this has multiple second order effects, such as students leave with very huge financial loans, which inhibits them from taking up entrepreneurial projects, etc., etc. From the student perspective, is it justified? I don't think so. From an institute perspective, why is it expensive? Because there are costs. Can they be reduced? I think yes. That's my three things
That's
on
your
it.
take on. And what about the student being satisfied with what he gets by spending 27 lakhs?
I don't think so. I don't think students are very satisfied. I don't think students feel that it is justified.
Hmm.
Especially with,
And they can do
sorry,
nothing about it.
yeah, you can't, practically can't. And especially when you compare it to how the fees has sort of increased. I have a friend who did his MBA from IIM Calcutta, batch of 2015. They paid 13 to 14 lakhs, and 10 years later, I paid 24, and I think now it's 27. Um,
Mhm.
but that is one. When you compare it to average salaries between 2015 and now, the salaries haven't risen as much. So your ROI has actually reduced over these years. Your fees has
Oh,
increased, but salaries haven't.
that's something absurd to note down, right? Given the fact that the costs are rising, maybe Indian institutes of management need to learn how to manage their expenses better, probably.
Probably.
So,
Or at least
yeah, you were saying.
evaluate the expenses. Like a lot of the expenses in terms of library resources are done for better rankings, accreditations, etc. And they're also used extensively by the professors and PhD students. Do MBA students need all those resources? Is something that they need to reevaluate. Like we
Question
haven't
and all
used
of
a
that.
lot.
And why should MBA students bear the burnt of all of that, whatever is being used by the rest of the people?
Exactly.
That's something to over as well. I mean, we can go endlessly about the management decisions of the board, but let's take back to the experience of yourself as a student. So, Vanshika, what is the vibe of the campus like? Like, what's a regular day at campus like?
So it depends. It varies significantly between first year and second year. First year, you barely have time to do anything. There are classes, there are quizzes. We've got close to 33 courses in the first year across the 3 terms. So it's insane amount of academics along with summer internship placements, clubs and societies. Also, you're new, you're adjusting, you're making friends. There is a lot happening. The second year that way is much calmer. You can choose fewer courses. You already have friends, so you help each other out. People go on exchange. So the second year is nicer. That's when your friendships deepen. You move beyond academics, discuss startup ideas, um, go on trips, have fun, go on exchange together. So the second year is more fun. The first year is more hustle and work and all of those things.
Talking of hustle and work, did you find it overwhelming when you entered the college, or did you feel Ahmedabad is overrated?
Um,
IMA is overrated.
so when you get in, it's definitely overwhelming because, as I said, there is a lot happening. You get in, there are clubs and society selections, there are 8 courses. Um, each one is different. There is HR, there is marketing, there is finance, there is quant. You're suddenly thrown into multiple areas. Um, and also like contrasted to your undergrad college. If you're getting into, let's say, an engineering college, a lot of your class is are science students who've taken physics, chemistry, math, or physics, chemistry, biology, or whatever. They come from more or less similar backgrounds. Here you're thrown in with 400 people who are absolutely different. There are all kinds of engineers, mechanical, chemical. I didn't even know there was an engineering stream called metallurgy and metals. So
Yeah.
there are people who are coming from different work experiences, different family backgrounds. So you're trying to cope up with people, academics, societies, extracurriculars, and you're also making your CVs for your summer placements, which is a very hectic task. So very overwhelming in the first month. But eventually you find your rhythm, you figure out, okay, these are the 3 things I will focus on, these 3 things I will not focus on, and then you sort of find balance. But yeah.
The act of saying no that helps, not having a lot on your plate. That's something
Yes.
that helps. And given the fact that the batch hosts a lot of diverse individuals, what's the pedagogy like? I mean, how was the pedagogy?
So IIM Ahmedabad follows that entire case-based method. You have a company case and you discuss that, and through that case, the professors introduce you to concepts. That is how almost all of our courses are structured. um, it takes some time to get used to the method because you're used to learning concepts first and application later. Here the process is sort of reversed, so it takes time to get used to it, but once you do, you sort of reach a comfort zone.
You reach a comfort zone, but do professors begin with an assumption that, having that vantage point that every student out there has a basic understanding of mathematics, calculus, and stuff? So, do they begin with an assumption? Is that a healthy assumption?
So in case of IIM Ahmedabad in particular, to sort of, I think, counter this assumption, what they do is between you receiving your offer letters and between your college starting, they give you a bunch of preparatory courses. So these courses are pre-recorded courses by HBS, and there are three of them. There is language skills, there is math starting from basic math to calculus, and there is Excel starting from basic to advanced Excel. So they have this expectation that you will go through these courses and have a basic level of understanding of mathematical and Excel concepts. So that is what they assume, and this is where the assumption comes from. I'm not sure if this happens across colleges, but Ahmedabad sort of prepares you for this assumption. They're like, the professors will have this assumption, and therefore you prepare.
Probably it's a healthy assumption. But what is this weird fascination, weird obsession with HBS? We see case studies of it, we see preparatory material of it, we see the taglines everywhere. Can't we do away with HBS now?
I think it's a long due thing that they should get away with it, but get done with it. I don't know why that doesn't happen. So initially, when IIM Ahmedabad started, they started out in partnership with HBS. The professors were trained at HBS. Some of the HBS professors came here and took classes, and all of those things happened. But I think that's over. It's been 60 years. We should probably move on. But yeah,
But things are the way they are.
we don't change processes. We are lazy.
That's an integral part of almost every institution. But talking of the pedagogy, Vanshika, at the college, what beyond those 33 courses are a part of your program that help you become a better manager? What beyond those courses?
Very interesting. So I think a lot of things. So honestly, if you ask me, what I've learned in the classrooms is 30-35% of my entire MBA experience. What I've learned outside the classroom is what is more important and will probably contribute more to me being a better manager, so as to say. So, your courses will cover all the technical skills that you need as a manager. You need to know finance, HR, Excel, PowerPoint. You've got courses for everything. So, the entire tech stack of a manager is covered through the courses. The other softer aspects are covered outside the courses. For example, study groups. We were talking about how the first year study groups are made by the admin office, the second year you make them on your own. So you essentially learn to work in teams which comprise of both strangers as well as friends. How do you sort of, with strangers, it's easier to sort of tell someone that, hey, I don't like what you've done in the assignment. Can we change it? But that becomes very difficult when you have a friend in your study group. So you learn a lot of these team things, how to work in teams, how to work in different teams made of strangers, teams made of friends. The admin office study groups are very diverse. You learn to work with a CA, an engineer, a person coming from um, an arts college. So a lot of how to work in a team happens in the study group. A lot of another very good sort of learning experience is class participation. So we have marks for participating in the class discussion. So apart from adding to your grade, I think what that does significantly is it allows you to become more confident in voicing your opinions in a class full of 100 people and a professor. You learn how to put your opinion strongly. You your public speaking skills become better. You're addressing a classroom, the way you put things forth becomes better. So there are a lot of these skills which you learn outside courses, which are very important, I think, as a manager.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. All the classroom representation and you getting to be in teams. These are the two pivotal things that make you a better, communicator.
Yep.
So that's pretty much it about about the kind of things that we get after investing 27 lakhs. That's pretty much it. I'll
You
have to
leave
bring this up
with a
again.
great network of friends who will probably do well in life. So they might help you
Probably
do well.
industry. Yeah. That makes sense. Talking of the study groups, let's talk a little bit about the dating culture at IIMA. All of us, I mean, most of us have seen two states. Nobody would deny that. But is the movie true to whatever happens into IIM Ahmedabad?
And Ahmedabad has a very thriving dating culture, um, both serious and casual. I have a lot of friends who are now getting engaged to their
Oh,
gay partners. So
oh,
there is that. Also, this is the first time you're living in hostels with no restrictions. Not a single guard will ask you where you're
there's
going.
no restriction. There's no cross-gender interactions that is prohibited over the campus.
No, not at all. In fact, my hostel was a co-ed hostel. I had four girls and four guys living on the same floor. So,
That gives me an idea of the things that are happening on that floor.
absolutely, you can feel free to be imaginative.
And what about apart from that, like the bonds and stuff, the relationships hold the tough test of time, or it's just so and so?
Um, Both. So it's a healthy mix. Like there are some people who are already dating outside campus. They come in and either that works out or they find someone better on campus. There are people who meet on campus and have a serious relationship, quote unquote, two states. There are people who date casually on campus, multiple people, they move on in life. So it's a very thriving dating culture, all in all.
What are the campus attractions like? I mean, places to be in the campus and places around Ahmedabad. What are the places like?
So, Ahmedabad is not a very happening city. Like there are no party scenes or clubbing scenes, etc. Because it's a dry state, so a lot of that doesn't happen. Even in terms of restaurants, things shut early because when there's no alcohol, there isn't much to do late at night in a city. So Ahmedabad that way is a fairly boring city. The historical parts of it, the old city are nice, but you go visit that during one winter evening. That's it. So Ahmedabad as a city doesn't offer you too much to sort of roam around and enjoy. For example, my UG college was in Delhi, and Delhi is great to roam around. Ahmedabad, not so much. So we spend most of our time inside campus. Inside campus is great. You either chill in each other's rooms, you go for chai, you go to the library, and I think the best conversations happen over cigarettes at smoking and chai places outside campus. So there is all of that, which is fun.
That's the idiosyncratic part of almost every institution. Chai sutta breaks. You get
Yep.
to have a great conversation. Let's talk a little bit about the placements, Vanshika. So what do you call, what is the structure of getting placed when you're pursuing your MBA from IMA? Like how do you get placed? What is the structure of events like?
So there are three ways in which you can get placed. One is your college typically starts in June. Your summer internship placements happen in November of your first year, and your internship happens in the April of the next year. So the first way is you go do your internship, get a pre-placement offer, accept it, and that is essentially your placement trajectory, which is my case. The second is you get a PPO or you get a PPO, you reject it, or you don't get a PPO, then you can sit in two different sets of placements. One is called lateral placements. This is a rolling process. This happens in the January of your final year, which is 2 months before your convocation. This is only people with work experience are eligible for this. I think 20 or 22 months is the typical cutoff. If that much work experience you have, you can sit for laterals. And lastly is your final placement week, which is the more commonly known as the day system. IMA has something different. It's called the cluster system, slightly different from the day system, but it happens in a week. So those are the three ways how you typically get a job.
In the week, It's right before the convocation or the week is right after January? When does the week fall?
It is roughly a month before convocation. So January is
A month.
laterals, February is finals, and March is convocation.
Makes sense. Makes sense. About the summer internship you mentioned in November. So what happens? All the students accumulate in a single room. They have the CVs in their hands, and there are recruiters outside waiting to land students, or is there something else that works out?
No, it's literally that. We all sit. So for us, the summer internship happened online. We were on Zoom, but I've seen the process during my finals, and it's pretty much the same. You sit in a room, you have shortlists, you get scheduled for interviews, you go give your interviews, get your results, and then you can either accept the offer or hold the offer for some time while you give another interview. And like there are processes around that.
There's no binding constraint that once you've accepted an offer, you can't move past that company for a better offer.
There are dream provisions like you can your number of offers are limited, number of applications are limited. For example, you get one offer, then you have four or five more applications that you can make. But at most, you can take three offers out of the placement system. At your third offer, you are basically done. That's it.
You're basically done with your third offer. That makes sense. And what are the kind of factors that play spoil sport when a person seeks to get placed? Do poor academic scores act as a hurdle, or or choices of stream or gap years? What are the most significant of spoil sports?
Interesting. So, especially during summer placements, which happen in November, there isn't much that you have done in IIM Ahmedabad by then. Your CVs get frozen in August. So you've been in Ahmedabad only for what, 2.5 months. There isn't a lot that you've done in IIMA to put on your CV. Your summers happen entirely basis your past performance, both academics and otherwise. So during summer, poor academic scores previously, um, are a big spoil spot. Like you will miss out on consulting shortlists because you've got a low CGPA in your past college. During finals, this changes. During finals, a lot more weightage is given to how you spent the 2 years at Ahmedabad. But during summer, past academics and extracurriculars are important factors. Second, if you're coming in from a non pedigree college, for example, you're coming in from a not so famous IIT or a not so famous Delhi University college, you are at a slight disadvantage because IIMs have a lot more people coming in from a particular IIT, let's say
The better,
IIT X.
yeah, yeah.
These IIT X people then go to a particular job. So when that job may people are shortlisting your CV, the moment they see an IIT X, it's a marker for them. Okay, this student will be a good student because he's from my college, and I know the academic rigor and all of that. So if you're coming from a not so famous college, you're at a slight disadvantage during summer.
Apart from that, anything else? Apart from the
Um,
academic factors?
Gap years on your CV, they're not very visible. In an interview, how you justify your gap year is a make or break. But in terms of shortlisting, I think that is it. Your past academics and past work ex and your
The
past
better
college.
college. Let's talk a little more about the placements, Vanshika. Like I've read in a lot of places, of course, in unsolicited places, that all the numbers of placements are sort of really exaggerated. So, can you give us a little idea about what is the lowest package like? What is the lowest of the lowest batch earning out of this program?
So, honestly, I don't have the exact number, but in case of IIM Ahmedabad, the audited placement report is easily available online. I don't want to be sort of caught quoting a wrong number. So I won't really give you the exact number because I genuinely don't know it, but it's out there in the audited report. In terms of exaggeration, the numbers in the audited report are absolutely correct numbers because they are talking about cost to company, which is typically higher than what you get
Yeah.
in terms of fixed cash components. Yeah. So I
So, what
think
is the
that
typical cash to compensation ratio?
um, for PM tech companies, it is slightly higher because you've got a significant part of your CTC in terms of stock options and ESOPs. So there it is fairly inflated. Like you can have a CTC of 50 LPA, but you can out of that about 20 would be RSUs or ESOPs. So
Hmm.
for PM Tech, that ratio is much higher. For consulting and finance and all of those places, it is not very different. It is like, I think, a few lakhs here and there, not much.
Few lakhs here and there. Whoa, whoa. And about the lowest package, like, people always have this thing that once they enter into a B school, all of their life's ambitions are set. The word that all of us are used to using, set. So, maybe this notion does not hold the tough test of time once they get to join the institution. Are there students unplaced as well in the cohort who didn't voluntarily choose to be unplaced?
Unplaced, no. Voluntarily unplaced, yes. There are people who choose entrepreneurship. There are people who choose to go back to their family businesses. Um, Also, like for example, there are people who came in with a lot of work experience. Let's say 3 years. Their old employers are like, "Hey, do you want to come back join us?" So there are those options that people take up, but no one's unplaced per se. Like if you're
In-
in the placement process, you get a job.
Oh, that's a big statement. And I guess with regard to placements, if there's anything else that you want to add, any kind of information.
Um, Nothing in particular, just that I mean, it's interesting that you haven't asked me about placement committees, etc. If you ask me, I feel that the placement process should be outsourced. Students shouldn't be running the placement process because one, it is very hectic for you. There is academics and then there is this massive responsibility. Two, you're a student. You will at some point be biased. Like, I'm not hinting at any sort of exploitation or anything that has happened with my batch. I don't think anything of that sort happened. But there is always a possibility. And, like,
There's room.
Yeah, I personally believe they should
So
outsource.
they should outsource it. I mean, outsourcing it to a different set of individuals who could probably, manage it better. That's what you recommend.
A third party, I believe ISB does this. They've got an external agency that manages placements. So,
Whoa. That's something the other institutions need to be adapted learning. But what about the kind of companies, Vanshika? Like, could you give us a little information about the kind of companies that turn up? And what is the best domain for getting employed?
right. Best domain depends on you. Kind of companies, there are a bunch of like major segments: consulting, finance, marketing, general management, product, and tech. These are the broad categories that people get into.
And of the five categories, what are the offers like? Which is the domain that, absorbs the maximum of the workforce?
Consulting, hands down, like they take off almost 25 to 30% of the batch. More than 25 is, I think, the top consulting. But if you look at consulting altogether, easily 35% of the batch is consulting.
30 to 35% of the batch. That's a big number. Wow.
Yeah.
And Vanshika, you were talking of getting selected into societies, cells, and all sorts of activities. So, what is there room for shining as a person who pursues extracurriculars during your time at IMA?
Not as much as your undergrad college. So this is a common feeling that everybody has in Ahmedabad, that your societies and clubs are much more active in your UG colleges. In Ahmedabad, there are two kinds of societies and clubs. One is a career club, such as consult, finance, product management. These help you prepare for placements, um, collate resources for making people better PMs, better consultants. Like the PM Club now has a vibrant community, WhatsApp community where we share articles, discuss AI, technology, etc. So those are the career-oriented clubs wherein you go and sort of focus on the career paths that you want to take post IMA. The hobby clubs are for enjoyment and chilling, and they're also a source of great friendships. So yeah, you can definitely, you can't pursue your passion out of, let's say, a music club in Ahmedabad, but you can definitely have like a relaxing time
Only the
that way.
relaxing. There's not a lot of growth. Like you mentioned, DU offering those opportunities, to grow as a passionate pursuer. So there's not a lot of growth.
No, not at all.
And talking of this synergizing fact, you getting adept at solving case competitions. So how does that fall into picture? What beyond Unstop do you guys do to become better at case competitions?
So Unstop is for registering. There are multiple emails that we have around some international competitions and all of those things. But the quality of your submissions for these case comps, at least for me personally, I've seen it just get better over the years. Like when I look back at my first year submissions, I'm like, this doesn't look good at all. Like my presentation skills, my ideas, me putting in frameworks and a lot more structured approach has become definitely better over the 2 years.
And how does it get better? That's the point. How does it get better?
So you do a lot of courses in strategy, in marketing, and you learn a lot of frameworks. You learn how companies approach act. So the case-based methodology adds to it, right? A case comp is essentially another case that you were trying to look at. And because in IIM Ahmedabad you have looked at 100 cases in 1 year, the way you approach a core case is improved over the 2 years. You learn how to start thinking.
The course makes you well equipped with solving case competition. That's how you put it. You mentioned that there's a center of education that helps in figuring out stuff with the education sector. But is there any center that helps startups exclusively at IMA? Can you
Yes,
talk to us
IMA,
about
yeah, IMA has a startup incubator. It's called CIIE, Center for Innovation. I don't know the full form honestly because I wasn't very interested in it, but CIIE is the center. They do multiple things over the 2 years to sort of take care of your entrepreneurship ambitions. For example, in the first term of our second year, students had the option to do a project course under CIIE, wherein you took an actual business problem and created market research, spoke to industry experts, put together a fundraising deck and all of that. So if you were actually interested in a startup idea, you could take up this course. That is one. Two, there is funding available on campus. IIM Ahmedabad has an endowment fund from the alums. You need to pitch your ideas to the endowment fund. You can actually get your first round of funding. And there is a scholarship for you if you're getting into entrepreneurship. Also, there is placement support. So let's say you decide to sit out of placements during your final year and do a startup. I think you can come back after 1 or 2 years and sit for placements again if your idea doesn't work out. So I think there is
wow?
significant startup support. That
There's significant amount of support. That's unlike the rest of the institutions that I've heard about. Wow. IIMA is doing very well in this regard, probably.
yeah.
And Vanshika, apart from startups, if a person seeks to become something, what apart from job can he land from the campus? What beyond a job are his prospects?
Um. So one, it definitely makes you a more confident person. So you'll see a lot of people from Ahmedabad leaving their jobs after a while to pursue alternative careers. Like there has been someone who's started a music band at some point.
Wow.
Um, so it makes you confident and also it gives you a safety net, right? You know you have a degree to back on if the other thing doesn't work out. So there is that. But again, like I took an education course and we were discussing this as part of the course. Um, this also goes back to your high fee problem. Because the fees is so high, people move out with loans. You need to repay that loan, and the only way to do that uh, easily is to have a high paying job. So, in the
Exactly.
beginning, financial burden restricts you from a lot of other options. For example, if you look at early 2000s or late 1990s. The IMA alums from then are people like Raghuram Rajan or Harsha Bhogle or the chief economic advisor, I think a couple of years back was from IMA. Yeah. So all of these people actually went ahead and became, did their PhDs, went into research, went into academia, that now has become a more risky proposition because you've got a monetary obligation in terms of your education loan. So the high fee sort of plays into the career choice that you make right at the beginning. Eventually, it gives you a safety net, it gives you a network, it allows you to move around jobs. But immediately at the beginning, I think it has gotten slightly restrictive.
constrains you for at least half a decade before you repay your loan, probably.
Yep. Yep.
Whoa. And what about you personally, Vanshika? Are you happy with how things have planned out? Are you personally satisfied in your content, however the things are?
I am. So I went in with a very clear idea that I want to leave with a PM job, get some PM experience, and then eventually build products in the
Yeah.
development. So I have walked out with exactly what I wanted. I've made my share of mistakes in IIM Ahmedabad. You get sort of carried away with the entire, oh, I need a day. So how your days are structured during placements is product companies come towards the end. So you have to be
Yep.
really patient till that last day. I haven't been that patient. I actually took up a consulting offer during summer and then I dreamed because so it's very difficult to sort of not fall into that pressure. But I'm glad that things have worked out the way I wanted them to work out. Let's see how that pans out in the long run.
And what about, having that clarity? What would your advice be to all the people when they seek out? And, you mentioned that phase when you were confused in Hindu about what you want to do. So how do you give people that direction that, okay, this is something you can do to find clarity?
So, absolutely personal advice, as in this is personal opinion. You should do your MBA after some amount of work experience. Having worked gives you a lot more perspective into things you like, things you don't like, and also it adds to your MBA experience in the classroom. If you've been in an organization, you will appreciate the HR issues a lot more. Like in HR courses, I knew that the freshers did not find them interesting, but people who came from a work ex background were like, yes, this happens. There is the bell curve in terms of appraisals, and it is not nice. When this is being discussed in class, you can add a lot more to the conversation if you've worked before. And if you've worked before, you also know things you like, things you don't like. So, working helps you get a lot of clarity and make more of your MBA as opposed to being a fresher when you come in.
So probably, students should get that work X. And what about apart from that, that direction that you had of, working in the education sector and pursuing analytics? What about that decision?
I think talk to people a lot. Like I figured that education sector is something I like. I spoke to people who are working in the sector to sort of validate my hypothesis. I had some sense of this is what happens in the sector, etc., etc. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And I spoke to a lot of people. So I think talking to diverse individuals also gives you a lot of insight into a career path. So, for example, if you're a fresher coming in, a lot of your summers you will get summer shortlists from finance companies. You don't know what a PVC company does. It just sounds nice because it pays you a lot. But before jumping into it, I would say talk to people who are in the industry, get a sense of what they do, and then evaluate whether this is something you want to do, irrespective of the money that it pays you.
Networking is the key to making better decisions. That's what you recommend.
Absolutely.
So, Vanshika, most of your answers were succinctly crafted. I mean, they were precisely, pretty to the point. So, on that note, we are coming towards the end of the episode. What would your advice be to people who are embarking on their MBA journey, who are about to begin their classes from the next week? What would your advice be to all of them?
Right. Um, Foremost advice during your MBA interviews, they ask you why MBA. That's a very important question during your selection interviews. And it is not important just like that. It is actually a very important answer. So, know why you want to do an MBA. What is it that you want to achieve out of these 2 years? Because, as I said, they aren't even 2 full years. You spend 2 months interning and it ends before that. So, roughly like 18 months or so. It's a very short time. So make the most to, and there is a lot happening. So to make the most of it, figure out why you're going in, what are the things you want to focus on. Do you want to do well academically, become an institute ranker, have that clear vision? What is the sector you're aiming for placements? Have that clear vision. Talk to people and develop that vision. And lastly, enjoy. Like these are going to be 2 great years of your life. So like take time out, sit with friends, have fun, listen to opinions, talk about things, and just like go on trips, enjoy it. Because once you start working, you will not enjoy anymore. So do it while you're
You lose
in your
enjoyment.
college.
And just one question to, sort of put you in a fix. They often quote MBA as a superficial degree. What do you have to say about that? It makes you a jack of all trades, but then it doesn't necessarily add anything in value. We see a lot of magnates mention this. So what do you have to say about that?
Um, Depends on how you define skills. If you compare skill levels of an MBA person to that of a core engineer, we definitely don't have skills. Like we know everything, as you said, superficially. We know how a little bit of finance works, but we don't know it as well as a CA does. We know how product management works, but I don't know it as well as an engineer does. So yes, you know all of these things superficially and skill wise it's that. But if you define skills differently, if you define skills in terms of communication, presentation, teamwork, um, confidence, structured thinking, then it gives you an edge over everybody else because you've done exactly this for 2 years. So
So you
that
spent 2 years in the most prestigious of institutions learning communication. Is that what you want to tell me? You know,
absolutely, and so not just communication, tactful communication,
that
negotiation communication. So all of those things you can.
all those things come into picture. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes, and you mentioned about the fact where you get to strategize. That is also an essential takeaway from pursuing an MBA.
Absolutely,
Basically,
you develop a long term thinking outlook that okay, this is my short term strategy, this is my long term strategy, this is what I need to do to get here and then get there. So a lot of the structure and perspective changes.
giving you worldly wisdom. That's what MBA equips you with, giving you worldly wisdom.
Yep.
So, so Vanshika, with that, we come towards the end of the 15th episode. It was really fascinating to talk to you about the intricacies of getting to pursue a management course in IIM Ahmedabad. And with that, we come towards the end. I really appreciate the fact that you took time out from your busy schedule and gave me this opportunity of interviewing you over your remarkable career. And I wish the very best to you at exploring whatever Amazon has in place for you. And let's see what happens.
Thank you so much. This was great. I think all of your questions were very smartly designed, and I had a great time. Good luck to you too with all of your further endeavors.